Hi there, in this episode I'd like to share with you some fantastic reasons as to why you should be writing blogs on a regular basis. So why on earth should you be spending time and effort just writing stuff on your website in the form of a blog? Well, there's a whole list of reasons, and I'm going to give you some examples of where they have been incredibly successful for small businesses and self-employed people. But the biggest reason I would reckon for writing a blog post is that it's good for your website in the search engines. If you're a small local business or you've got a local market and being found in Google and also in Bing and Yahoo is important to you, then a blog is one of the key things that you can do to get your website shooting up the search engines. And the reason being is that Google loves content. When somebody searches for something, Google wants to give them the most relevant and often the most current and information and results for that particular search. Google loves content because that's what people look for. People look for all kinds of stuff, and they reckon something like 2 or 3% of all the searches that go into a Google are new hour by hour, and that to me is just staggering. But of course we have a worldwide market with several hundred languages. But the key thing is this: Google loves content, and when somebody searches for something, they're only ever going to give them some content. So if you have lots of content around your topic, around certain search phrases for what it is you have to offer, then it stands to reason that Google are going to give your website more credence in the search results than somebody who has a lot less content or none, as is often the case. So first things first, it's great for your website's position in the search engines, especially if you sell locally and have a local market. Another great thing about blogging is it gives you the opportunity to build some credibility by highlighting your expertise. And this can be done through things like case studies, where you've taken on a client, for example, and you worked with them, created a solution to their issues, their problems, you've made their lives better, their business easier to run, or whatever it is that you've done, and you're sharing this stuff with your audience, where then you're also building credibility but showing off your expertise. People like buying from specialists. They like buying from people who are perceived to be top of their game, the best in the field, absolute experts. So blogging is a great way for you to share content that highlights your skills and expertise. Now, an interesting statistic, and in my website design business, we regularly look at search engines, and we look at SEO, and we look at all kinds of online marketing stuff. And we've worked out that even now, and this is middle of 2020, only 5% of the self-employed and micro businesses will do any kind of blogging. Less than 1 in 20, that is. So if you just get cracking with doing some blogging, the chances are good. It'll be no time at all before you start outperforming your competitors locally in the search results, simply because you've more content than them around your topic. It's absolutely crazy. The tools are there. If you've got WordPress and a content management system, blogging software is pretty much built in. It's there. It doesn't have to cost you anything. And if you don't have blogging software, I would question why. Go back to whoever it is that you built your website and say, I need a blog. Get a blog. And if they try charging you money for it, I would rethink whether they're really on the ball with modern web design. Another great thing about having blog posts on your website is that you've got content to share, and it's a great way of doing yourself a lot of favors in the social media by sharing out content, especially if that content contains useful resources, ideas, tips, some unique thinking, some opinions and stuff like that to make you into a useful resource in your target market. People love those, like I said, who are experts. And if experts share their expertise, it will only ever endear you to your audience. Again, by perceiving you as somebody who knows what they're doing so much that you're willing to give some of it away. Yes, you don't give away everything, but the point is this: if you share your expertise and share tools, ideas, tips, how-tos and stuff like that, as we do in the smashingselfemployment.com social media, then people will say, actually, these guys really know what they're doing. So when it comes to buying something, you're more likely to be in the frame because you've been in their space, you've shared some great content, and you've actually given them some ideas that you could well be the person to talk to, because it looks like you know what you're doing. Now, even better than this, and those are just some of the reasons why you should be doing blogging. But if you use WordPress as your website content management system, there's a handful of plugins that will enable you to automatically reshare to your social media some of your blog posts. Now, we use a free plugin called Revive Old Posts on the smashingselfemployment.com website, and it automatically sends stuff out to Twitter, our old blog posts out to Twitter. You can have it hooked up to a handful of different social media, but we just send it out to Twitter. The great thing about it is that then kind of automates some of your digital marketing, which I just find flipping brilliant. But again, you're automating the sharing of your expertise, your knowledge, your credibility, etc. So it will automatically build you up in the minds of customers. So hopefully you're convinced of the reasons why you should be doing some kind of blogging. Now, in terms of how often, we get asked, how often should I write blog posts? It's a tricky one to answer, but I always advise once a week. Now, you don't have to write 15,000 words on a blog post. You could get away with doing as few as just a few hundred. A guy called Seth Godin, who is a marketing guru, he writes a blog post every single day, has done for years. Some of them is just a single sentence. Others are a few paragraphs. But he does something every day. He's consistent. And that's one thing I would actually come back to, is be consistent. If you say you're going to blog once a week, do it once a week. Google, when they come to your website and see something new, they will give you extra points in the search rankings. But if you do, say, 6 blog posts over 6 weeks, but don't do anything for 6 months, here's what happens. You get a little boost, and then over the 6 months of nothing, you go down and down and down compared to your competitors who may well be doing that a little bit more than you. So however often you're going to do it, twice a month, every other week, every week, once a month, be consistent. Put it in your diary to do some blogging. But like I said, you don't have to write War and Peace. You just need to be consistent. You need to be writing about your topic. I would always recommend target 500 plus words. That seems to be a good enough number for you to get all the right keywords in there, get a good point across, perhaps put some imagery in there to support your point as well. But 500 words once every single week, it gets you 50 plus content items into your website. So it makes your website very big, very quickly, but also in the search results, it makes your website very credible. Okay, so to look at all of that, I want to give you some case studies based on this. And when we build websites in the website design business, we always recommend to our clients that you write some blog posts. And I want to tell you a very brief story and a couple of others besides. First one is about a woman called Deb. Now, Deb started up as a freelance interior designer. Lovely lady. She'd never been self-employed before, so it was a whole new thing to her. And I built her a website, which was, of course, very, very aesthetic. Design is an aesthetic industry, and you have to be able to highlight and show off your expertise. And she said, well, how am I going to get found in the search engines? And I said, well, you need to do 2 things. First of all, you need to blog a minimum 4 times a month. Absolute minimum. And then you need to share those blog posts out on Twitter and start connecting with people on Twitter who you might want to do business with, or people in your industry, particularly the big guys. So she said, okay, that's fine. What do we need to do? I said, well, you want to write about your work. You want to highlight the things that you're doing, highlight your expertise, show the designs that you're working on, even just the draft designs, or if you use a CAD software, show some of that stuff, show the final result, etc. Just highlight your expertise, write about what you're doing. So Deb got started on this, and she really went to town on it. She was writing anywhere between 5 and 12 blog posts a month. At one point, one week, I think she wrote 4 blog posts. Now, they weren't long. They're typically only 50 to 100 words about what she was doing, supported by a couple of photographs. But the point is, she was putting content out there on a very regular basis and sharing it out on her social media. She went to Venice on holiday. If you've ever been to Venice, it's a beautiful place, and some of the buildings have beautiful interior design. She wrote a lot about that and took loads of photographs, shared loads of stuff about it on her blog over several months, writing about the interior design. Every time she went somewhere and saw a good design, she took photographs and wrote about it. Now, from a standing start, Deb got to the top half. I think she was average 3rd place in the Google search results for her search terms worldwide in less than 6 months. Now, 6 months might sound like a long time, but bear in mind that Google is absolutely crowded. Competition is fierce. So to go from a standing start to right up there in the search engines in less than 6 months is astounding. And it's purely on the strength of her blog, because a lot of her stuff got reshared on Twitter, and of course that then drove traffic to her website, and it just became a bigger and bigger thing, to the point where Deb was overrun with work within her first 6 months. Now, as a small business owner and a self-employed person, sometimes it can take that long just to get any kind of momentum in your business. But she was picking up so many inquiries through her website, purely on the strength of her blog and its help in the search engines, that she was absolutely astounded. And I'm so pleased that she trusted me and went and did it. Okay, when you're self-employed and you're just starting up, you seem to have time on your hands. That's a great time to get some momentum. You know, like I said, target a very consistent basis. Deb went absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. She was putting out anywhere up to 12 blog posts a month. Like I said, not long, a couple of dozen words. I think the average was about 40 to 50, and a couple of photographs to illustrate the point. So that's one example, and it can be done, and it can be done still. Now, I have another client who runs a small specialist law firm in the Midlands, and I was asked to go and rebuild her website, which we did, and she said, well, what do we do to do well in the search engines? And I said, well, you need to write some blog posts. And said, well, God, we've never written blog posts before. We have no idea what to write. Our industry isn't the world's sexiest, so what can I do? And I said, well, there's two things you can do. You can write about your industry. You can write some industry comment about, you know, the legal system in Great Britain is a bit crazy at times, and it's often I wouldn't like to say antiquated, but a lot of the way things are done are just not conducive to efficiency and effectiveness. So the legal system in Britain can be a little quirky. So you could write about some of that. Also, you can write about what people say about you. Ask for testimonials and publish those on your website. Every single time you do, Google will see that there's something happening on your website that's important, and testimonials are a great way to build credibility with your target market, because you can share them just about everywhere. Everywhere you can share testimonials, not just on your blog, but on your social media as well. So I said, okay, well, fine, we can do that. So they started sharing a couple of times a week, typically a short comment about things that were happening in their industry. They did some charity work, they wrote about that, took some photographs, etc. They also put in lots and lots of testimonials. They started asking for testimonials from every single client. So they've got loads of stuff going in. And it took maybe 2 months. Now, bearing in mind this wasn't a new website, it was a replacement of an old one. It took 2 months for them to reach the top half of the first page of Google for their search terms. And they've been there ever since. 5, 6, 7 years later, they've been there ever since. They're there purely on the basis of the fact that they put stuff regularly into their website. It's not that they don't have a big marketing budget. They're up against companies with a marketing department who can spend money on advertising, who can put, you know, if they wanted, write blog posts every blooming day, they could put social media out every 5 minutes. But this particular client of mine beats them all, almost always, purely on the basis of the content, because Google loves content. And finally, I want to tell you about a client of mine, a guy called Dean. Dean runs a flooring company. There's him and a couple of guys who work for him, so very, very small business. They do commercial flooring. And Dean came to me and said, look, my website's been stuck on page 3 forever. So what can we do? So what we'll do a little bit of SEO on your website, but more importantly, you need to start putting out some content. So what do you mean? And I said, well, just write about the work you're doing. I said, I've taken a look at your website. Some of the stuff that you do is fantastic, particularly the way you manage to be able to turn things around overnight. I mean, doing the flooring on a business overnight, so there's almost no interruption to how the business functions. I mean, he did a case study not long ago where he'd ripped out the floor of a warehouse the size of a sports hall, and he literally started at 5 o'clock one evening and they finished it at 7 o'clock the following morning. They did the whole thing overnight, stripped the floor and relaid it overnight. It was just phenomenal. And I said, this is the kind of stuff you need to be sharing and writing about. Take photographs and write about the project. Well, he started doing this stuff and he wrote 5 a month. Sometimes, some days he wrote, weeks he wrote 1, sometimes he wrote 2. But it took just 10 weeks to go from page 3 to second place in the search engines. And the only reason the guy above him was there was simply because his website had been online a long, long time. And Google gives a lot of credibility to websites that have been there a while. But he literally, in 10 weeks, went from page 3 all the way to 2nd place in the search engines in Google for his search terms. Now, to some extent, I shot myself in the foot because I wanted to rebuild his website because it needed a bit of a design overhaul. But he was so busy with the work that he picked up from the search engines that we never have managed. To date, we've never managed to sit down and go through it, which is a bit frustrating for me. It's good for him, and it's great to be able to share this story with you because it just works. So, all in all, blogging works. All in all, blogging is a great way to do your website a big favour in the search engines, to get your credibility across, establish expertise in the minds of your clients. It's incredibly good with you, and also become that trusted source, useful place to be, etc. So if I haven't convinced you to get on with some blogging, I'd love to know. Please share it in the comments below. But other than that, work a plan, put it in your diary, get some blogging done, and I promise you results will come. Your website will move up the search engines. It's just a matter of time. So, really appreciate you watching. I really hope that's useful. I would love to hear from you in the comments below. You've got questions, comments, etc. Just let us know. We always respond to questions on our social media. But that's it. I'm going to stop talking. Appreciate you tuning in. Thanks a lot, and bye for now.